Good evening, anybody. I'd like to call the zoning board meeting for today to order, and I would like to ask everyone to please stand and for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a little different format in today's meeting. First, that there's any deletions to the agenda for tonight. Is anybody aware of any deletions or changes to tonight's agenda?
Move to approve as submitted.
Anybody second? This is just for tonight's agenda. I'll second that motion to approve tonight's agenda, so that's passed. The second thing we have is we've inserted public comments before we go into the next item. It appears we only have the petitioners here other than that, so I presume there's no public comments. So the next thing on our agenda will be the approval of the meeting minutes from February 25th of 2025. Those were part of our package. Does anybody have any deletions or additions, or is there a motion to approve those minutes from February 25th?
Motion to approve the minutes from February 25th.
With that motion, I'd ask that we change the parties present, members present, to remove Mr. Schweikart and Ms. Davies, since in my understanding they were not there. So aside from that amendment to the motion, does anybody else second that motion?
Second.
Anybody disapprove?
I don't think we have the votes to approve it.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4 of us.
3.
Meeting minutes and agenda approvals don't require majority of membership. That's just for variances. So
The present?
we're fine.
Okay,
Four people
okay.
can approve the minutes
No,
and the agendas. We're
My
fine.
mistake.
Yep.
All right, so be that as it may, we have the minutes from the February 25th, 2025 meeting approved with the deletion of the 2 members that were not here. Next, that brings us to our appeal and brings up the issue, Brian, as to the number of members we have here. I see Mr. Mills is coming in, so we will have 5 people here today to proceed on the appeal. And if you'd like, we'll give that a call as soon as Mark sits down and gets acclimated.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Okay, Mark.
Whoa.
Just so you know, we approved the minutes with the deletion of Mr. Schweikart and Ms. Davies of not being here from last month.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
Next item is appeal number 25-001 by Scott and Meghan Storey of 19130 Meridian, who is requesting a dimensional variance, request to expand a non-conforming residence. And Mr. and Mrs. Storey, I believe Brian Borden told you beforehand that he gets up and gives us a presentation based on his packet and the application you submitted, and then we ask for your presentation. Okay? Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First and only case this evening is the property at 19130 Meridian Road. It is on the west side of Meridian. It's a waterfront lot, the north end of the township, south of Bridge Road. So a lot of trees in this aerial photo, but you can see the rooftops right in here of the property. Site and surrounding properties are all zoned R1A, which is a single-family zone district, typically found along the outer shoreline. So East River, West River predominantly, but there are portions of Park Lane and portions of Meridian that also have R1A zoning, which is typically for the larger lots that are on waterfront. A couple of quick points that will be important to our discussion this evening. For this particular property, both the lot and the building are non non-conforming in terms of R1A requirements. So the lot is deficient in its width. It's approximately 74 feet in width. 80 foot is the minimum R1A standard. The residence itself is non-conforming for two reasons. One is it has deficient spacing from the adjacent residence to the south. The 18 feet is required, and I believe they have, forget the exact number, but they're deficient on that. I can get the specific number if you want it. Actually, I've got it here. It's about 12 and a half feet. And the combination of side yard setbacks is the other deficiency. So that is also an 18-foot requirement in the R1A district, and the property currently has just about 12 and a half feet. I believe it's 12 foot 5 inches is the combined side yard setback total. Pertinent standards that we'll be discussing here this evening are found in sections 3.5 of the zoning ordinance, as well as 18.6, and lastly 23.5B, which puts forth the review criteria that the board is to consider for a dimensional variance. I will put forth, Mr. Chair, since we kind of alluded to it, one procedural item for the board, for our petitioner. A reminder to all of you, you already know this, but under state law, to grant a dimensional variance, it takes a vote of the majority of membership. So in this case, this is a 7-member body, so it will take an affirmative vote of 4 of the 5 of you at minimum to pass a variance tonight. So I want to make sure the petitioner understands that, and a reminder for you all. So in a conventional setting, 3-2 with the 5 people here would typically pass a motion. However, that is not the case with a dimensional variance. So it needs to be at least 4-1 in order to grant the variance tonight, since we are short a couple of people. So just want to make sure that's clear. I don't know that we had talked about that. So,
Brian, just so we're clear procedurally, you've already explained that to the petitioners. I believe you just mentioned that,
Yep.
correct? And it's my understanding, not to call the petitioners up to the podium, but they still wish to proceed tonight, even though we do not have our additional 2 members here, which would be the full board. That is, we're correct.
yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
And in all honesty, I would, since we're already here and the hearings have been noticed, I would just assume we kind of get through the dialogue, and if for some reason the board doesn't feel obliged, the board sort of feels like you want to postpone action for reasons, or if when we get to the end of it, if petitioner wishes to request to be tabled or postponed, we could certainly consider it at that time. Since we've all convened, we may as well continue, and
Exactly.
I can't give up an open mic on TV that quickly, so I'm going to keep going
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for bringing that up. So I do have the next few slides are of the proposal itself. So this is a snapshot of the site plan for the project. So this is the front portion of the subject property, and then this is the existing residence. If you can see faintly on your screen, it's more pronounced in your hard copy packet. Existing residence is outlined in blue. The proposed additions are outlined in red. So there is a smallish addition in sort of the front center of the house, and then the larger component is on the north side of the house, as you can kind of see here. Again, I apologize if you can't quite see it on the screen, but it's pretty well depicted on the hard copy plans. And then I did zoom in on that as well, because I know it was a little difficult to read. So the existing house and proposed addition on the north side is at 6 foot 2 inches. So that setback is compliant with the 1 side yard minimum. So I didn't mention that part. So what they are building would meet the 1 side. In the R1A district, your side setbacks are 6 feet is the minimum for 1 side. The combination of the 2 sides is a minimum of 18 feet. So while they meet the 1 side minimum, you can see with the existing condition on both sides of the property, the 6 foot 3 on the south side, the 6 foot 2 on the north side, that's the 12 foot 5 inches, which is shy of the 18 that's needed to comply with that standard. So if you want me to come back to this at any point, I certainly can, because I think this does paint probably the best picture of what's being proposed. I do have the elevation drawings in here as well. So top of the screen, top right here, this would be the view from the north side of the property. So this is, again, sort of the most pronounced addition that's being proposed. It is 2 stories, and as I sort of showed, I'll go back here, that's this portion here looking at this viewpoint. If you can follow my cursor, that's that view of the residence, with the portion in this screen here being the proposed addition. Bottom left, this is the view from the other side of the property. So everything in the foreground on this print is all the existing home. The only thing in terms of the addition that pops out is the upper level of this addition, which you can kind of see how the roof line in the upper right projects above much of the existing home. And then same is true for the south side. So this would be the view from the neighboring property that does contain a residence. The upper right would be the view from property that is currently owned and protected by the Nature and Land Conservancy. And then these are the front and waterfront views of the proposed addition. So this would be the street front view, which really isn't overly visible given the distance it is from the road as well as the number of mature trees that are in the way. But this is the view from the street front, and then upper right would be the view from the shoreline for this side of the house. So again, you can see how the addition projects up above portions of the existing residence. So again, foreground on this slide is all existing here, and then the existing is off to the side on the bottom left slide. And once again, Mr. Schweigert was kind enough to go out and take some photos for us, so I do have these to share as well. So the upper left mimics that slide I just showed you, so that's sort of the view from what would be the street front of the property. The other two pictures, center or middle low and upper right, these are of the north side of the property, so this is where that primary addition will be coming in. And I want to call out, just for dimensional purposes, to give you some comparison. So these two bay window bump outs that you see here, these are actually basically right at the same line as where this new addition would be built. So, and actually I think the addition is maybe just a little shy of these. So what they are building does match, for the most part, the existing condition. Might actually even be a little bit less of an encroachment into the combination. And then here in the middle, you kind of get a better feel again for the character of the abutting property. We're all familiar with it. I mean, everything that is preserved and owned by Nature and Land Conservancy is generally intended to stay that way, though not always, but that's certainly their intent in terms of that. So the property to the north of them is owned and maintained by Nature and Land Conservancy, and you can see that sort of identified by the number of trees, not only in this photo, but obviously from the aerials that I started with. And then this is just two more shots that are kind of more from the water side looking back towards the road. Again, calling out these two bay window bump outs to give you an idea of what we're talking about in terms of the side-to-side encroachment, and then a view of the actual waterfront level of the existing home. In terms of the ordinance requirements, we are dealing with two sections in particular this evening. So the first is related to section 18.6 and specifically paragraph A. Because this is a non-conforming building, the ordinance does have provisions under which an expansion of a non-conforming building may be allowed. It is a three-pronged test that has to be met in order to qualify. In this case, they do not meet that three-pronged test, hence they're in front of ZBA for a variance. So the first variance is to expand a non-conforming building that does not fully comply with 18.6A. The second is, since they are essentially matching the existing deficient combination of side yard setbacks, that requires a second variance. So in this case, they are also seeking that, and that would be tied to a 12-foot, 5-inch combination of side yard setback, where a minimum of 18 feet is required by section 3.5. So that's for the dimensional standards for the R1A. The 18.6 is tied to the non-conforming provisions. And with all that out of the way, quick summary of my review letter. So I've identified sort of I'm going to redo how I do these a little bit for you guys based on our training seminar last month. So I'm going to really start with the primary test, and that is that of practical difficulty. So in this case, with respect to the practical difficulty standard, strict compliance will not prevent them from continuing to use this property for a residence. There's nothing that precludes continued use of a non-conforming building. However, the provisions do prevent any expansion of said building because they don't comply with section 18.6A. So in this case, a minimum of one variance is needed to expand this building in any direction, even if it were simply to go up, but match the same setbacks. They'd have to come to ZBA for a variance to do any expansion to the building. So I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. And then, as I noted earlier and showed in the pictures, the second variance matches essentially the existing conditions, might even be a couple inches shy, but for my purposes here, I went with matches the existing and does not further increase any of the nonconformities on this property. So with those two things in mind, you all, as the board judging this case, could view that as burdensome to the property owner, which would demonstrate compliance with the first component of the practical difficulty test. The second component is substantial justice. And this standard, as you'll recall from training seminar last month, I'm going to keep referring to that, is tied to both fairness as well as the minimization of variances, both in terms of the number of variances and the quantity of variance or the extent of the variance that's being sought. So in this case, given that the first variance is required to do essentially any expansion of this home whatsoever, I do think that that's fair, and I do think that that's sort of the minimum needed. The fact that they're matching existing conditions and not worsening an existing nonconformity, I do feel as though the minimization test of that is being adhered to. And then in terms of fairness to the surrounding properties, as I mentioned, the predominant impact of this addition is really to the north side, and that north side is, again, owned and protected by Groseal Nature and Land Conservancy. So it is, I can't speak for them, but I would say it's highly unlikely that property is going to be developed with a residence, likely ever. I don't want to say that, but that's kind of the reality of how they operate. Once they have the land, they tend to want to keep it and preserve it. So that's sort of the gist of that in terms of that standard. And then the last 2 points kind of go together, and those are tied to an extraordinary condition or circumstance of the property, and that if an extraordinary circumstance is present, it cannot have been self-created by the petitioner. So in this case, I'll go all the way back to my initial slide where I mentioned that the property itself is deficient in lot width. So the narrowness of this lot, in my opinion, is an extraordinary circumstance. And I took it a little further in my review letter. If you look at the deficiency in width and the deficiency in setback combinations, it's roughly 6 feet in both instances. So you can pretty logically make the case, I don't want to sound as though I'm being too logical, but you can make the case that were this a compliant lot in terms of its width, that the 6 feet they're deficient, 5.5 feet they're deficient, would be absorbed. So in other words, if this were a compliant lot, I think this would probably be a compliant home, and I don't think we would be here tonight, and the petitioner would probably already have a permit and be underway with their construction. So I do feel, again, one, that there is an extraordinary circumstance, the narrowness of the lot, and then two, petitioner did not create that condition, so it was not self-created. So I do feel that, again, my opinion, based on my review letter, based on this presentation, I think the most important component of this being practical difficulty, I think you are in a position to make a finding that those standards are met, but that is up to you. I don't want to put words in your mouth. And then I sort of just summarized the rest of the standards. As you'll recall, we have 14 separate standards here. Many of them are very similar in nature, and they are not necessarily the strict test for practical difficulty, but we do have other standards related to public safety, value of land, impacts on neighboring property, maintaining the character of the neighborhood, any potential impacts in terms of light, supply of light and air to a neighboring property. And in my opinion, again, based on my review, based on the nature of this property, and the proposal that's before you, I did not find any real concerns with any of those items as well. So that's all I have at this time, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to take any questions that the board may have, or I can turn the floor over to the applicant.
I have a question out of curiosity.
Of
Who would be the spokesperson for the Land Conservancy? Is there a commissioner of that board, or is that the township supervisor, like who would speak on their behalf? Not that it matters, they're not here, but I'm just curious of who that would be.
I would assume I mean, they are their own entity. I believe they have a board, but I know that they, I don't, but I believe there is a gentleman who is essentially the head of, I
Okay.
don't know what his title is,
All right.
but, John, I hate to put that on you. You could probably speak to it better than I could.
There is a board of directors and a chair. They're a corporation. That property will not be built. It was deeded by BASF to the Grocio Nature and Land Conservancy, and there's a deed restriction on it.
Okay.
So it will stay exactly as you see it.
But if somebody wanted to voice an opinion, they do have a board and it.
Absolutely.
and they have the right to do that. That was just
Yep.
my curiosity.
Yep, absolutely. And to that end too, I can let you know, obviously notification process was carried out by township staff. So Nature Land would notice being the property owner. And in my brief conversation with Ross earlier tonight, he did indicate that there were no comments, no objections, no anything that came through the public notification process. I did get a chance to speak with petitioner before the meeting, and they indicated they have put together some letters of support from neighbors. So I asked that when they take the mic, they can hand those over to the chairman, and those can be entered into the record as well. But as far as what the township received, township did not receive any correspondence through the public hearing notice process.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Not for me, no.
Thank you, Brian. So we'll ask the petitioners to come up, and we ask that you identify yourselves. We obviously know your address, but if you'd give your address, and if you need that lowered or raised, that's up,
I got heels on, we're fine.
if that's okay. And Brian will take care of that, so go ahead, folks.
Good evening, my name is Meghan Storey.
I'm Scott Story.
Thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. I do have, to answer your initial question, or the question you just posed, I actually have a letter from the Grocio Wildlife Conservancy, or better yet, an email saying that they have no issues consulting, as well as a letter of support. I would like to provide a little bit of context, if I may. We lived at our prior residence for 18 years, and candidly, I had zero interest in leaving. We fell in love with this home, and we purchased the home from a prior hoarder, if I may say that, who took lovingly care, but unfortunately due to some conditions, there was some neglect. And through the course of that, we purchased the home 2.5 years ago. We've tried to restore the home, but we've came to the conclusion it just doesn't meet our needs in terms of space and storage. So we've made the decision to put on addition and petition for an addition. But due to the narrow lot, that's one of the reasons why we're here today. So that's why we're seeking support, because in order for storage and those type of things, because the property is on a slab, we were previously had a basement. So for all the storage reasons, we are seeking an addition.
All right. And as for the letter, you said you have an email from the Nature Land Conservancy?
I do.
And Mr. Borden indicated you also have some letters from neighbors?
Correct.
We would ask that you give them to us, if that's okay, and because we would like to make that part of the public record in the event that it needs to be addressed at a later date. So do you have extra copies of those? Or-
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Yep,
great.
yes, I do.
So if you could give them to us, and we'll peruse them and then ask you any other questions, or you can continue with your presentation about the standards that we have to go by in order to review and grant or deny the appeal. So if you want to give us the letters, or it's up to you, it's your
Yeah,
approval.
absolutely. And the only other thing is, I also have copies of the visual edition, if you guys would like that as well. That's yours as well.
And anything you would like to present to us
Perfect.
would be great.
Thank you.
All right. So as Mr. Borden indicated, we have these standards that we must file. We've gotten your appeal. We've heard what Mr. Borden has to say, but can you address any of those standards, or would you like to address any of those standards as to why this is unnecessarily burdensome? I realize what you said about you need a basement, you need
Sure.
storage and things like that, neglect, but can you give us some other reasons why this is unnecessarily burdensome if it's not granted?
If it's not granted, it will reduce our ability to kind of live in the home and make this our forever home, potentially making us look to decide if this is the place where we can live, just based on where we're currently at today and our needs. What we're looking to do, and that's one of the reasons why the pictures, is we're really looking to match the existing structure. So we're not necessarily looking to expand beyond what's already there, which is the bay windows, which is, I think you'll see. So unfortunately, due to the nature of the width of the lot, it's unfortunately, we've had to apply for the variance.
Okay. And then the letters that you've given us in the email go to that it doesn't affect the adjacent property owners. In fact, you have their consent and their permission. Anything else you want to add? Why it's, you know, it sounds repetitive to you, but we have these standards we have to go by that would be, would do a substantial justice to you for granting the appeal. Anything more that you want to add? It seems to be repetitive, but.
No, nothing more other than we're just trying to align and continue to keep the home beautiful and, you know, restore it to what we believe it could look like.
All right. And the last one that Mr. Borden hit on is the extraordinary circumstances. You've already mentioned that the lot width is narrow to begin with, and you can't do anything addition without coming to us for an appeal. So anything other than that extraordinary circumstance?
No.
All right. And you've indicated that we can keep these letters as from the email from the conservatory, and as well as Michelle Babcock on 19177 Meridian Road.
Correct.
And let me look to see if there's any other letters here. That's you have the letter from Miss Babcock and the email from the conservancy, right?
Other than verbal support, those are the only documented
Okay.
letters I have.
Thanks. Anybody on the board have any questions of the petitioners?
No, sir, not me. Mr. Schweigert? I'm good.
Any questions?
Aesthetic-wise, it would stay with the same look that you have?
Correct. Yep. And in one of the pictures, it actually shows you what the current view is opposed to the projected view.
Any questions, Phil?
No, nothing pertinent to
Okay.
the ordinance.
All right, well, thank you, folks. We appreciate you being so thorough and getting those letters, bringing them up, because that helps become part of the public record, and it's appreciated very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
For sure.
Thank you for the time. We appreciate it.
And there is no public present, so there is no public comments to the application to the zoning board. Does anybody on the board have any discussion or items they would like to address, or move on with pursuing a motion?
I'm good with pursuing a motion at this point. It seems pretty clear-cut to me.
I am as well. Mr. Schweikert, anything?
No, I think that this should be approved. It is an extraordinary circumstance to have the narrow lot. Plus, when the house is being expanded, it does not increase the nonconformity, and that's substantial justice to me.
All right. Anybody else have anything to add?
I'd be supportive of this project.
All right.
Wanted to support as well. They
All
did
right.
not create the situation.
All right, and would somebody like to make a motion in accordance with what we were taught last month at the course, so we
Yeah, I'll
can...
go ahead. So, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Mr. Borden, but I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the appeal as submitted, as it meets the practical difficulties, substantial justice, and, in my opinion, it also meets the extraordinary circumstances, among other things. And based on those, I believe we should move forward with the appeal.
Second.
I support as well.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? There's no one else here, so your petition is granted. We appreciate it. Motion's carried. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
And lastly, again...
Enjoy your expanded house.
Yes. Yes. And there is no... Yes, I will keep those, and I'll turn them into, I will turn these letters and email into, this letter and email into the office for the public record. Again, we don't have any public here for any public comment. Do we know, Mr. Borden, whether or not there's an appeal coming up in April?
At this point, we do not, Mr. Chair. We are quickly approaching what would be the deadline, so I would think that if we don't have anything in hand by early part of next week, we'll have Ross or Brittany or Jimmy send out an email to the board to either confirm we did receive and plan on being here in April, or we did not, and you get a month off.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. With that, not knowing if there is a meeting in April, that's, someone make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Motion to adjourn?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This is the end of the March 25th, 2025 Board of Zoning Appeal meeting.
Thank you.